So today is Martin Luther King Day, a national American or federal holiday, and we wanted to, in recognition of the day, always look to see if we can get more insight. When I say insight, we're talking about possibly the origin, the purpose, and the function. What does that look like? And so this particular article is coming from USA Today. I'm going to shout them out, and we're going to jump into what this conversation looks like. MLK Day 2024. How did Martin Luther King Jr. Day become a federal holiday? What to know? I thought that was some good insight. Always want to make sure you understand the origin, the purpose, and the function. We want to see if that is included in this conversation. So let's jump right into it. Shout out. Oh, before we get started, thank you for pressing the like button, subscription button, follow button, sharing this information. There should be a Cashapp description there if you want to donate what you feel this message is worth, at least $1. Thank you so much at E1Connect $. E1Connect. Thank you for subscribing, all that good stuff. Let's jump into it. Shout out to Eric Lagatta of USA Today. Looks like Eric is a writer, of course, for USA Today, and I want to give him a huge shout out. Let's jump into it. Okay, so we first have a picture here of the Washington Monument can be seen in the background as U.S. civil rights leader Martin Luther King waves to supporting August 28th, 1963. Oh, I'm sorry, waves to supporters August 28th, 1963 on the Mall in Washington, D.C. during the March on Washington, where King delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech. So if you don't know, just as far as some background as far as the I Have a Dream speech, which definitely something that is recognized in the U.S., that was during the March on Washington, if you want to do your research on the March on Washington and what that was all about. The speech, which mobilized supporters of desegregation and prompted the Civil Rights Act of 1964. A little controversial, but I'll go there. There's always been speculation in various perspectives of desegregation and the pros and cons, if there are pros and cons. What does that look like from a social and economic perspective? From a political perspective, leave your thoughts in the comments. We always want to be professional in our remarks, so thank you for being mindful of that. But we have to be transparent. We have to discuss and be aware that diversity and diverse perspectives will always be. If I'm looking at one individual being the spokesperson, for a whole sector which is diverse within itself, then I am really kidding myself. And I want to say I was given the term at one point, the token black man, based upon some of the work I was doing, and I had to look it up because what I was able to accomplish was in the rooms I was in was really based on faith and works, and nothing other than helping my community, just providing my time and talent, and being able to build working relationships, have people skills, have emotional intelligence, get into certain areas to serve as a diplomat representation, a statesman, if you will. And I was hit with love, not like nothing negative. It was just like, hey, Donovan, you can't be seen as a token black man in this situation because it didn't sit right with certain situations, with certain perspectives. I had to look that up, and it was all in love, no negative thing, but I looked it up, and indirectly, a token individual was someone that stood out amongst and tokenism can come from various situations, race, gender, disabilities. It's so broad, but let's look that up, tokenism as well. And ultimately, tokenism, if you will, is kind of being seen as a spokesperson. I could be speaking out of ignorance on that. Keep that, leave that. I want to say I did a video on that. I'm going to see if I can find it. I want to say I did a video on that I have 3 channels: Vote for Donovan Hilton, Vote the numerical number 4, Donovan Hilton, Hilton Elite Marketing Agency, Donovan Hilton, spelled with all A's, and as of late, uh, LDH Podcast. I'll have to put the link in that. I'll put the LDH Podcast, but there's another one, LDH. Man, I'll put the links in there. But ultimately, it goes back to, in this case, this what did desegregation do for, the pros, cons, all those good things. And so in this case, I'm even looking at this picture, that's especially at this time, could be seen as a powerful picture. And is Dr. Martin Luther King the spokesperson? I'll leave your thoughts and your comments in these situations, or in this article. Martin Luther King Jr. may now be a nationally revered civil rights icon whose legacy is celebrated every January, but the road to name a federal holiday in his honor was not an easy one. And I'm saying that because the first thing I'm thinking of right now was a conversation I had with an elected official that voted for a local elected official at the local level that voted for something that his overall, I don't want to say party, but party, if you will, did not necessarily agree with, and it became a holiday for that local area, and a day that the municipality workers had off. They had to actually have on to replace that day for the new recognition and day that was just voted in, if you will. And it was voted in by a majority, if you will, of people, obviously, but this elected official voted for it where the majority of his party did not. And I had a chance to just get some perspective and feedback from the elected officials' perspective on, what they were receiving. So I've definitely had a lot of insight. And so just looking at what the road to name a federal holiday in his honor was not an easy one. Ironically, within the last 2 weeks, that was a conversation I had and some real-time experience and real life experience. King, who spent the last years of his life advocating for nonviolent actions against racial inequality in the United States, sparked a national movement and earned himself the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. If I didn't know that, if I knew that, I forgot. But that's, I believe, is a big deal in a societal perspective. At least in the U.S., I'm not sure if the Nobel Peace Prize is a global thing. Let me know in the comments so that we can all find that out. But definitely want to look up the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964 as far as with Dr. King. Despite his accolades, it wasn't until nearly 20 years after his assassination in 1968 that Martin Luther King Jr. Day became federally recognized in 1986. And it was even longer until all 50 states recognized the holiday by 2000. I didn't know that, just 2000, where it was recognized by all 50 states. Was not aware of that. Again, it was not an easy road. Was not a part of that road. I'm looking from the outside in like everyone else, but this is a great article just to stimulate conversation. Again, we want to shout out Eric Lagatta for this great article that was created, and let's keep moving on. Here's the story of the fraught struggle to make MLK Day a day celebrated across the nation, and everything else to know about the holidays. This is why I wanted to bring this up. This is a day where kids are out of school. Government agencies are pretty much not working. Certain businesses are not working. Obviously, it's a recognition of a community and figure leader that has made an impact in the current United States of America society, and we are still recognizing this individual through a federal holiday to this day. And so we will definitely want to just get some more insight and get to know everything about the holiday. So let's jump into it. When is Martin Luther King Jr. Day? On the third Monday of every January. So let's keep that in mind. It's not a particular day. It's going to be on the third Monday of every January each year. The federal government shuts down for the day to honor Martin Luther King Jr. The Baptist minister came to national prominence during the 1955 Montgomery bus boycott in Alabama. I had the opportunity to serve, as some people don't know, I had the opportunity to serve as the men's ministry leader for a Baptist church for 3 years. This was the same place where I was married and baptized at, and respectfully, the same place where my mother-in-law had her funeral and my sister-in-law, respectfully. And so my children attended the after school um, program there for the church. So kids would get bused to the church for the after school program where they ate snacks and did their homework and did various activities until their parents or guardians came and picked them up. And my children not only attended this school for at least 4 to 6 years, well, for about 4 to 6 years, maybe a little more, but I also served as the van driver to take the kids home for the after school program, in which I was compensated for 3 years. So I was very engaged in the Baptist church. And so that just pops up to my mind when it says the Baptist minister first came to national prominence during the 1955 Montgomery bus boycott in Alabama. Definitely, if you have time, look up the Baptist history. I know if I'm speaking out of respectfully, I hope I'm not speaking out of ignorance, that a lot of the so-called African-American base, quite a bit of African-American based residents in the United States, attend Baptist services. Since I was, serving as the minister, I had a chance, or not necessarily a minister, but the ministry leader for the men's ministry of this church, for this Baptist church. I've had an opportunity to just kind of do some research, and I became aware of the American Methodist Episcopal, forgive me on that, the AME church. I believe the gentleman's name was Richard Allen, who helped us found that church. He has a great story. If I'm going to speak out of ignorance, leave your thoughts in the comments to get more information on the AME church as well. But the Baptist church was something that I believe a lot of African Americans do follow. King would go on to become one of the most prominent figures in the civil rights movement, founding the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in 1957 and leading the 1963 March on Washington. If you have any information or links you could direct us to for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, please let us know and put it in the comments. And as we can see, the 1963 March on Washington played a huge role and is a big deal. So if the article does not cover the March on Washington in 1963, if someone could put a link in the comments so that we can check it out some more. Thank you so much again for the donations through Cashapp at the minimum, $E1 Connect. I definitely want to continue to bring this information to you and stimulate minds, have conversations. We can go live, start memberships, do all those things respectfully. Like blood is to the body, cash is to any type of production, if you will. So we have to keep things moving, create cash flow so that we can produce assets. So I thank you so much for the love at Cash App, $E, the numerical number 1 Connect. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and following, and smashing that like button, pressing the like button as well. The holiday, we're continuing on. The holiday in his honor is timed to honor King's birthday, though it rarely falls on that actual day because of the Uniform Monday Holiday Act, which former President Lyndon B. Johnson signed into law in 1968. Definitely conversations we can have as far as the Uniform Monday Holiday Act and also President Lyndon B. Johnson. And I did not know that it was President Lyndon B. Johnson that signed the Uniform Monday Holiday Act, which we got to get some more information on. Born in 1929, King's birthday is January 15th, which is in fact happens to be the day that MLK Day will be celebrated this year. Didn't know that, January 15th. What is the meaning of MLK Day? Now, what I see in this picture, if you're watching audio-wise, is diverse flags. I'm curious to know what these flags are. If you are able to respectfully, accurately put the information of the flags in the comments. And we also get the people, very diverse, which is always, good to see. And just love to see what these flags look like. A crowd gathers to celebrate Martin Luther King Day in 2023 in Milwaukee near a statue of his likeness. I want to shout out Mike DeSisti Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, USA Today Network, and while I'm doing that, I don't think I had a chance to shout out the Associated Press with their photo, respectfully. And I also want to shout out AFP via Getty Images. All right. King advocated for civil disobedience and non-violent methods to push back against racism and segregation. Definitely leave your thoughts there on just what comes to mind. Some people have their perspective. I think at the time, I'm going to go ahead and go there. I believe at the time, Malcolm X was, had a movement, if you will, or was in a position of being, I don't want to say the face of a movement, but just at that time, respectfully, I'm speaking out of ignorance, but Dr. King and Malcolm X were both in that movement there at the same time, and I believe it said that there was two different perspectives. And so King advocated for civil disobedience and nonviolent methods to push back against racism and segregation. And I'm not going to say that Malcolm X did not, because I know Malcolm X in the sharpness, always was looking for peace, from my understanding. I could be wrong, leave your thoughts, but I'm just going to drop some my opinion and why I want to learn and I need information and why we want to stimulate conversation. As such, MLK Day was designated as a national day of service in which all Americans are encouraged to volunteer to improve their communities, according to the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture. I was not aware of that. Excuse me, y'all. I was not aware of that. It says here that MLK Day was designated as a national day of service in which all Americans are encouraged to volunteer to improve their communities. Across the nation, cities and local communities will host ceremonies and volunteer events on Monday. Nationally, the King Center in Atlanta, Georgia, is hosting a variety of events through Monday to commemorate King and honor those who embody the principles for which he stood. The NAACP will also host its annual King Day at the Dome event, which Vice President Kamala Harris is scheduled to headline. So these are, excuse me, these are things I did not know. Shout out to the brands and individuals that are mentioned here. How did Martin Luther King Day become a federal holiday? So I see here we have a picture. Let's see what this looks like. President Ronald Reagan signed legislation on November 2nd, 1983, making Martin Luther King Day a federal holiday as Coretta Scott looks on, courtesy of the Ronald Reagan Library. Now, I did not know that President Ronald Reagan signed legislation on November 2nd, 1983, making Martin Luther King Day a federal holiday, and Miss Coretta Scott, excuse me, Miss Coretta Scott was there looking on. Was not aware of that. From my perspective, have an opportunity to serve as an elected official for a particular party, and then ending my terms, regional vice chair for this political party, ending my term, when my term ended, did not want to run again and wanted to build relationships with the opposite side of the aisle, if you will, and really put myself in a position to be a statesman. I've had a lot of opportunities to listen to various perspectives from the two major parties, independent parties, and other parties that, so I've had a chance to really be around. And so I get a chance to really listen to people's perspectives, get their feedback on history. And so like I said, I didn't know that President Ronald Reagan signed that bill to make MLK a federal holiday. I know people have their perspectives of President Ronald Reagan. And so that's something new for me to learn. Feel free to always leave your comments and your thoughts as far as the information that I'm presenting. But we want to leave professional comments that are productive and able to move things forward. see. The campaign for a federal holiday in King's honor began 4 days after he was assassinated on April 4th, 1968. James Earl Ray confessed to shooting King and was sentenced to 99 years in prison. King's killing sent shockwaves through America and is still regarded as a landmark event in U.S. history. For those that respectfully were alive at that time, what were you doing when you heard the news that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated? Where were you at? Do you remember what was going through your mind? Feel free to leave your comments and your thoughts. Again, if it's not productive and helpful, respectfully, thank you for leaving that comment, for not leaving that comment at all. Despite the national fervor inspired by the death of the leader who was instrumental in the passage of the Civil Rights Act in 1964, legislation to honor him languished for years, according to the National Constitution Center. And as I look at the National Constitution, first of all, we want to, if anyone has a link or some information they want to share about the Civil Rights Act in 1964, we'll do this. According to Wikipedia, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is a landmark civil rights and labor law in the United States that outlaws discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. It prohibits unequal application of voter registration requirements, racial segregation in schools, and public accommodations and employment discriminations. The act remains one of the most significant legislative achievements in American history. And this is just in 1964. Respectfully, not even, 40, not even 75 years ago at the time of making this video. And to know that all those things were going on, what a time to live. Excuse me. What a time to live at that time. And so, definitely the country's come a long way. The National Constitution Center also makes me think of the Constitution of the United States of America and how I believe the Constitution has been around for, excuse me, y'all. Get some water. Excuse me. Not sure what happened. The National Constitution makes me think of the Constitution, USA Constitution, and I think the Constitution's been around, in America during the time of this creation of this video for at least 245 years. I could be speaking out of ignorance on that. Please let me know. Definitely fact check me at all times. 245 years, and again, just being around civics and getting perspectives. The Constitution, United States of America Constitution, being around over 240 years, where most constitutions for other countries, are around for, 1 to 5 years, some 10 years. You have some for 20, 30 years, but it's very rare that a constitution is in place, the original constitution, if you will. Not the original, maybe it was, the original constitution, if you will, for over 200 years. And so definitely want to look up the history of the United States of America Constitution and leave your thoughts on that. I know that's a big topic in the U.S. today. Undeterred by the lack of political support, Representative John Conyers, a Democrat in Michigan, reintroduced the legislation every year with the backing of the Congressional Black Caucus, which he helped found. Let me read that again. Undeterred by the lack of political support, Representative John Conyers, a Democrat in Michigan, reintroduced the legislation every year with the backing of the Congressional Black Caucus, which he helped found. I want to shout out, I don't know much about him, but Representative John Conyers at that time, being the fact that he reintroduced this legislation every year, and I want to shout out to the Congressional Black Caucus, for backing that, and Representative John Conyers helping to found the Congressional Black Caucus at that time. Definitely had to be a mover and shaker. A lot of times things are done individually or in a small group, but sometimes things are done on a premeditated basis. So leave your thoughts and comments there. But just to be a part of that experience at that time, um, it says here Representative John Conyers played a role in that. Wow. It wasn't for 15 years after King's death that civil rights activists finally succeeded in making Martin Luther King Jr. Day a nationally observed holiday. On November 2nd, 1983, President Ronald Reagan signed a bill making the third Monday in January a federal holiday in observance of King's legacy. The holiday was first observed 3 years later on January 20th, 1986. Go back here. How did Stevie Wonder help? Okay, Stevie Wonder, the musical entertainer. Shout out. Years before Reagan signed the bill, legislation had been struck down by the House in 1979 as President Jimmy Carter called on Congress to pass it. So it looks like President Jimmy Carter, back in 1979, even called for Congress to pass the bill. Following the bill's defeat, musician Stevie Wonder released his song Happy Birthday, an ode to King's vision that galvanized public support for the holiday by recognizing his many achievements, according to the King Center. Wonder didn't stop there. The Motown singer made regular appearances alongside King's widow, Coretta Scott King, at rallies. Wonder capped a 4-month tour with a benefit concert on the National Mall, where 18 years earlier, King delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech. When the bill again made it to the House floor in 1983, Coretta Scott King and Wonder delivered a petition with 6 million signatures in favor of the holiday to the Speaker. The bill easily passed in the House with a vote of 338 to 90. And we have a picture here. Coretta Scott King, widow of Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., embraces singer Stevie Wonder during a celebration on the steps of the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C., November 3rd, 1983, a day after U.S. President Ronald Reagan signed a bill making the civil rights leaders' birthday a national holiday. I'm going to shout out Ron Edmonds, Associated Press. At the Senate level, Republican Senator Jesse Helms attempts to accuse King of being a communist didn't derail its movement, and it passed in the Senate before heading to Reagan's desk, according to the Smithsonian. Let me read that again. At the Senate level, Republican Senator Jesse Helms attempts to accuse King of being a communist didn't derail its momentum, and it passed in the Senate before heading to Reagan's desk, according to the Smithsonian. So it sounds like Representative John Conyers pushed the bill which is the House of Representatives. And I believe the House of Representatives, creates the bill. That's voted on, gets passed, or it gets moved on to the Senate. The bill then gets voted on, and then it goes to the president's table or desk, from my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong, y'all. And so, as it made it past the House of Representatives, it made it to the Senate office, onto which Senator Jesse Helms tried to make sure the bill did not happen by accusing King of being a communist. Let's look that up. I've heard that word several times. It's a hot topic. USA Today. A communist is a person who supports or believes in the principles of communism. And so we'll have you do your research on communism, and love for you to get your thoughts. Sorry, y'all. Love for you to get your thoughts on, what that means and how that plays a role in the U.S. Looks like that was a aim that was pushed. When did all 50 states recognize MLK Day? We got a picture here. In this August 28th, 1963 file photo, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. addresses marchers during his I Have a Dream speech at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington. Picture powered by the Associated Press. And I see the picture here. I want to shout out the law enforcement there. That jumps out to my attention there. Amongst this very powerful moment in American history. And I want to make sure I'll leave my description to, excuse me if you don't mind me saying, I'm going to leave a link in the description to my 9-week experience. I had a chance to participate in the Citizens Police Academy. And that's an opportunity where most local police departments give you an opportunity as a resident to go through a Citizens Police Academy, which basically, from my experience, was a 9-week orientation, if you will, to the law enforcement process, all the way up to, I had an opportunity I volunteered to get tased. That was week 7 or 8, and I was prepared to get tased. I volunteered to do it. I wanted to go through the process, and the day of the tase, and this is all in my this is all in my videos. Volunteered during week 1, and so here we are getting into week 7, and I'm talking about getting tased. It's obviously on my mind. And the day of the tase, the moments right before I was getting tased, it was myself and another lady, Caucasian lady, and she was actually the mother of a newer law enforcement officer for that precinct. I think he was there for like 3 years or less. And so it was myself and the mom of the law enforcement officer. He's very young. And I have that video in the video profile that is described in this video. And I was actually on the ride along with the officer whose mom got tased. So getting a chance to ride along with the officer, young professional, and then work with his mom and participate with his mom and watch his mom get tased. Just tough family. I want to shout them out. And I decided to participate in the Citizens Police Academy because at the time there was a lot of PR and a lot of conversation and focus on law enforcement and what to do with law enforcement moving forward in the United States of America. And me being a community engager, I wanted to get in there, find out the process, ask the tough questions with the sergeants, with the captains, really ask the tough questions coming from the community perspective, and hear the questions that were being asked from the community as well. And that's usually the best way to always find out, information. The best way to kind of do things is to, I say kind of, because you got to use wisdom and discernment, but best way to always find things out is to go through that experience. If another great way to find things out or to avoid finding things out is to take heed from those that were in those experiences before you. That's probably your best way to learn something. But if it's fuzzy in an integral, positive way, you definitely want to get involved. And that's what I did there. And ended up not getting tased because the moment I was going to get tased, the head officer said, okay, does anyone have any medical conditions or had any medical conditions? And I did say, well, I do have a light heart murmur, and that heart murmur did not affect me. I was able to play sports growing up. I played high school basketball. I played a stint of community college, basketball, so that didn't affect me. But because they asked, I said, oh yeah, I did have a light heart murmur, and they stepped to the side and they said, well, sorry, Donovan, we can't have you participate in the tasing because these electrical waves that will go through you, and it's not just a one-time thing. The currents and all that still go through you, and we don't want to activate something or whatever in regards to that heart murmur. So for liability purposes, I was not able to get tased. I'm glad I brought it up because I wasn't going to say anything. I was glad I brought it up, and they want to take precaution. At the same time, that lets me know, though, in real life, if I were to get tased because of my actions or whatever the police officers think I'm doing or whatever, I would play a role with, my heart. But I know plenty of people have gotten tased before for a number of different reasons, and they had to move forward and deal with it. So respectfully, I have the mindset to do the same, but I do understand for liability purposes, especially just for orientation, the police department felt it was not necessary. So I'll leave the link to my 9 weeks of my Citizens Police Academy experience. I did not get a chance to do the 9th week in the actual graduation and go through that process with the chief of police and everything because I had another community activity or a family emergency. I forgot what it was, one of the two, but I was not able to participate. But shout out to the police department and the academy for allowing me to go through that process, and I definitely would advocate for anyone to go through their local Citizens Police Academy to get more understanding, to build relationships, and to ask the tough questions. By this time, 17 states had already enacted king holidays of their own, the Smithsonian said. So by this time, 17 states had already enacted king holidays of their own, the Smithsonian said. Other states, though, were resistant to the idea of honoring king by name. Instead, they observed holidays with alternative names. Arizona and New Hampshire, for example, celebrated Civil Rights Day, while Wyoming celebrated Wyoming Equality Day, according to the Smithsonian. And so when I think of that, I just think of a bad joke. It's a bad joke for me, but when I think of that, when it comes to other states, were resistant to the idea of honoring king by name. Instead, they observed holidays with alternative names. Arizona and New Hampshire, for example, celebrated Civil Rights Day, and Wyoming celebrated Wyoming Equality Day. To me, it's a bad joke, but I just think of those states saying, hey, you know what? We don't want to recognize the name, but we do want to meet folks halfway. And so we'll create Civil Rights Day, and we'll create Wyoming Equality Day. Now, I know that's not a funny, nothing is funny about this. And again, a bad joke is designed to be a bad joke. And just a fun fact, I was inspired to pursue bad jokes and to really move forward on those through Michael Scott, lead character for the TV series The Office. Shout out to Steve Carell and the great work he did, the whole team for The Office, to include actors and those behind the scene. The Office is one of my favorite TV series, and I'll leave a link to The Office there as well in the description. And so a bad joke is what comes to my mind because the states they wanted to create alternative names. It's funny to see the Civil Rights Day and Wyoming Equality Day. I guess they tried to meet folks halfway. Moving on. It wasn't until 2000 that MLK Day was officially observed in all 50 states for the first time. I was not aware of that. I thought all 50 states recognized the holiday at least since the 80s. And so to hear that it wasn't until 2000 that MLK Day was officially observed in all 50 states for the first time, that's new to me, which lets me know at the same time, it lets me know this is just some civics for us all. Let's see. On November 2nd, 1983, President Ronald Reagan signed a bill making the third Monday in January a federal holiday. So that lets you know that even though in 1983 Martin Luther King Day was recognized as a federal holiday, that it wasn't until 2000 that MLK Day was officially observed in all 50 states. So that lets you know right there that just because the federal government, passes a bill, does not necessarily mean that the states' governments have to observe the bill, if you will, or observe the law, if you will. That part is fuzzy to me, but it just lets you know that, the federal government and the state governments are two different things. And it makes me think of Hamilton, when the play Hamilton. I was introduced to Hamilton, Alexander Hamilton, through the play. A lot of people, from my perspective, I've heard a lot of people that agreed or did not agree with the play, but at least it stimulated enough for me to look the play up and to really do research on that time and that era. And I've done a few videos about Hamilton. I'll leave in the description as well for you to check out. And so, but at the end of the day, I believe it was Alexander Hamilton, according to the play, that said, hey, let's focus on creating a federal government, because at the time, the United States of America was organized and ran and operated by state governments. And Alexander Hamilton introduced the idea of a federal government, which would oversee all the states, which a lot of the states did not like. And so bringing that back to this conversation, that Alexander Hamilton moment plays a role even today, into which in 1986, the federal government recognized MLK Day, but it wasn't until 2000 that MLK Day was officially observed in all 50 states. So you definitely want to know your civics. You want to know the difference and the functions, the purpose, and the origins between your local, state, and federal government. To me, your local could be your municipality, which is your city or town, and your county. To me, those are local. And then you have your state. And so the state is, your local government is really where you want to focus most, and then go into your state, and then go into your federal, because the federal is obviously seeing the bigger picture of things, where your local government is seeing what's going on right in your backyard, which is monitored and managed by your state. So it looks like that's the end of the article there. You have 36 photos that you can check out regarding Martin Luther King Day. Let's do that. And again, I want to shout out Eric Lagatta, who wrote this article and also covers breaking and trending news for USA Today. You can reach out to Eric at elagatta@gannett.com. Definitely want to get your thoughts on this article, this conversation that we had, or this review that we had. How did this review and this information impact your life? What did you take from this article? What, if you can leave in the comments, what did you not know about MLK Day that you learned once you read this article? And if anything at all, how's MLK Day impacted your life, and how has Martin Luther King Jr. impacted your life? And leave that in the comments. Again, I thank you for hitting the like bell, smashing that like button, all that good stuff, as they say. Liking, subscribing, sharing, commenting on this video. Thank you for donating at least $1 to my Cashapp, $E1Connect. That's the letter E, the numerical number 1, CONNECT. That's N as in Nancy. Or you can reach out and visit my PayPal, paypal.me/E1Connect. And thank you for leaving what you felt this message was worth to you. Thank you for leaving your comments. Fact check me. I look forward to seeing your comments. Thank you for leaving professional comments that will unify and at least bring us together. And if not, just leave your comment in your mind respectfully, or write it on paper and just, throw it away, tear it up and throw it away. We all have a right to do our own thing. And so thank you so much. Let me know what you think. Look forward to connecting with you on the next video.